Like it's as if everybody's Jim Halpert now, right? Like everybody is, and everybody else is Michael Scott. So you're either like an idiot boss, or you're the cool kid in the office that says yikes and nope and oops and stares at the camera like every time that somebody says something stupid. You're not all on camera. I'm on camera, and I'm not saying that about things that people say and do on here. Although if you say something really stupid in the chat, I might literally look at the camera like defeated by delicious fruit pie. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 169 of DBDFP. I am NEDTJ, Ned the Janitor, on this wonderful channel. I am here with Dr. Ocelotopus, as usual, and with a micro friend of Micro Mike Myers, who is much less dangerous and also fits inside of Dr. Ocelotopus's mouth. I was going to put him in there because it was kind of funny, but I decided not to. Let me know if that's something that you'd like to see, because it was kind of funny to watch it. Also, just as a total aside that has nothing to do with anything, but I can, if I put my fingers up here on the screen, it looks like bunny ears on the shadow in the back corner. You can actually see it. So you're welcome for that. This week, we have some things to go over and discuss. I want to talk about the mug of the week because it's an oldie but a goodie. It is Life is Like a Box of Chocolates. The other side does not say, you never know what you're going to get. And it's a big box of chocolates on this mug anyway, so it's really not Forrest Gump. It's ish. It's Forrest Gump-ish. You know, it's kind of like if I tried to do a Forrest Gump impression, it would be ish. I was Forrest Gump for Halloween last year, and it was ish. Not going to lie, it was very ish. But yeah, so this mug, my mom actually got me this mug. Thank you. I love it. It's one of my favorite mugs because Forrest Gump, obviously, if you have been watching this at all, you know it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Borderline is my favorite movie of all time. Which I guess, again, would be ish. So this week we're going to talk about words and why words matter and why we're ruining entertainment with our rampant destruction of the English language. Now, if you don't speak English and you're just watching this in subtitles, I actually have a few people in the Ukraine and a few people in Bulgaria who are watching this. I don't know how you're watching this anyway. If Google Translate is anything like it seems to be, like if you watch the Chinese to English translation of Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3, it's probably actually hysterical to watch me do this show. And now I can understand why you guys are a big part of my audience, because it's pretty bad. The translations are bad. But if you are watching this in Australia, the UK, the United States, which is the majority of my audience, you know just as well as I do that we're really bad at protecting our own language. The language itself is being kind of butchered on a regular basis, usually in the music industry, but also just in pop culture and on your phone. So this all, I mean, it didn't start. This has been going on for a long, long time. This is where dialects came from, accents, abbreviations, nicknames. All of these things are, you know, just in some semblance, butchery of a language or another. But it has accelerated as we've looked at things like texting and throwing snaps at each other and just putting in songs. And my favorite, so I'm going to give you an example real quick, the evolution of the word brother. So brother turned into bro, which at least has the first three letters in the word, so it's kind of like an abbreviation, bro for brother. Then it turned into bruh, which if you say it too quickly sounds like bra, which is not something a bro typically wears. So it was really confusing, and it had a U and an H at the end, and then it turned into breh, which I'm not really sure how that has anything to do with any of the other words. And the only person who says it in a way that I find entertaining is Mad Vlad from the Outer Middle show, because he's like, come get me, breh. And that's really funny. I actually think almost everything he says and does is pretty hysterical. So if you haven't checked him out, go and look at the Outer Middle show. He's on YouTube, but he streams on Fridays and Saturdays around noonish. And right now he's doing this Odyssey game, which is really cool. It's a really cool evolution game. But check him out. He's awesome, and he's very funny. But he can say it, but it's definitely not bro anymore. I mean, I don't know what it is. And pretty soon, like, there's not too many iterations left of this before it just becomes bum, grunt, ugh, right? Like, we're getting back to, like, that Odyssey game where you play, like, an ape colony and you're trying to evolve. We're doing it in reverse with, like, we're using words now that are less and less English and more grunting, which, congratulations, that's great. And it's fine. I think most people use those words ironically, but not everybody. Not everybody does. So that's just an example. We use other words though, and we're not using them properly. So, it's a lot like in The Princess Bride, like, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. There's a lot of that goes on with words like perfect, right? So this is one of my big pet peeve words. And for people who know me, they know this drives me nuts. I was going to say a swear, but I went back in time 3 seconds ago. Like I said before, I was going to do the stream, and I stopped it and muted it 5 seconds before. So that apparently works. It drives me insane when people use the word perfect for things that really should just be okay, acceptable, or even great. Because even great isn't perfect. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen too many things on this planet that are perfect. You can get a perfect score if it's like a 21 out of 21 or 100%. That would be a perfect score. But unless you're being evaluated and you're looking at whether or not something is actually perfectly matching what is expected, it's very difficult to say that there's a perfect chair. There is a perfect penny, a perfect lettering, that somebody has performed perfectly on stage, that was a perfect performance by Liam Neeson. Although if there was going to be somebody who had a perfect performance, Liam's the guy to do it. Perfect is often used for things that are extraordinarily imperfect. Like the one that I really look at a lot is when people are trying to do appointments. So I do a lot of appointments. And I schedule them with people and I talk about it and I'm texting back and forth and they'll say something like, oh, well, how is Wednesday at 2 p.m. for you? And I'm like, that works for me. I put it in my calendar. Their response is, with no other words, perfect. Ugh, like my skin just crawled saying that. It's not perfect, okay? There's no way that is perfect. What about the fact that it's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday is perfect? Like, is the world perfect now? Is that appointment perfect now? Is that time perfect? Because it probably isn't perfect for me, or it's not really perfect for you. In all likelihood, it's a compromise in the first place. That you didn't want it to be at Wednesday at 2. You would prefer for it to be right now, immediately when you wanted to see me. And I would prefer that it's probably 10 o'clock in the morning because I don't want to see anybody after 12 o'clock on a regular basis. Ooh, that'd be perfect. I hate when people use the word perfect for, like, almost like how, some comedians that they're not really funny because they just drop F-bombs and they're like, they're swearing as punctuation. Or, that person that, like, especially like at a bar or something like that, the more that they're talking about something, the more that they're dropping, like, either like just, whatever, shit or like an F word or whatever. They're doing that as literally the breaks in between other things that they're saying. It's kind of like that. People use perfect as a placeholder. It's like the zero of words, which really sucks because perfect should be something that we hold in very, very high regard. We should be looking at things and being like, wow, perfect would be like, this is the perfect RPG game, or this movie was the perfect portrayal of El Chapo. That would be like, wow, like that should make you kind of give you pause and think this is the best it could possibly be. But when somebody just says perfect like 18 times a day, I mean, either your life is actually pretty damn perfect, and that's creepy and Stepford and weird, or you're abusing the language. You're actually degrading the value of words that we use to enhance what we're trying to say, to build emphasis, or to just denote something of importance. So how does this relate to entertainment? Why am I saying this? Why is this episode 169? Because, episode 169, dude. That was not a perfect impersonation of Bill and Ted. And even if I was kind of mildly using the word perfect, I understand that that's not. But I'm using this to say that it's not just perfect. And I rail on that word a lot just because it kind of drives me nuts all the time. But we use words all the time that don't mean what they actually even mean. Like bro. Or like, bruh. I have people that send comments sometimes that just say bruh. And we know that does not mean that they're saying brother because I'm not related to that person. Skinny Slender Man 395 and I are not actually blood related relatives. That's not a thing. So when they say bruh, they don't mean that. And we do this for words a lot. Like I remember, and this was cringy even in the early 90s, when somebody said something was cool and then somebody else said it was awesome. And then somebody said it was, and this is a quote, funky, funky, fresh. Now, that may have just been something that like CBS Kids was trying to float to see like if people would actually take that on. It didn't catch on. But there are words that people use, like we used clutch cargo, and that's money, and like things like that. But we're now using words, I think, in a way that degrade entertainment in a lot of things, and degrade high quality performance and nerd culture in general. And I want to give you a couple of them that I think are particularly, and I don't want to abuse this word either, but they're kind of toxic. And by toxic, I mean that they're literally poisonous to us in this nerd culture. They're ruining our nerd culture. And so the ones that I really want to focus on is number one, hardo. This is something that if you were born after the year 1998, you probably have heard a lot of times in high school. But it essentially equates to somebody who is geeking out on something, whether it's grades or sports or their performance at work or in drama. A hardo, and then the other one that I want to focus on is a try hard. Now, literally trying hard, you would think, would be something positive, but no, this is being fashioned as an insult to people who literally give it their all. So if it wasn't for the Olympics and it wasn't for actual gold medals that Michael Phelps got, he would be considered a tryhard in swimming. Why? Because he was in the pool for like 8 hours a day, every day. Wow, what a hardo. Yeah, that's... Oh, here's another great one. Yikes and oof. I can't stand oof. People say the word, it's not even a word. They use the exclamation of oof to mean that they think that somebody did something stupid or made a mistake. Like, it's as if everybody's Jim Halpert now, right? Like, everybody is, and everybody else is Michael Scott. So you're either like an idiot boss, or you're the cool kid in the office that says yikes and nope and oops and stares at the camera like every time that somebody says something stupid. You're not all on camera. I'm on camera, and I'm not saying that about things that people say and do on here. Although if you say something really stupid in the chat, I might literally look at the camera like, but nobody will know and nobody will get it, and they'll be like, why did he just do that? And I feel like that every time somebody says yikes or oops or an oof in a comment section. Groovy never caught on either. Yeah, it did. There's circles where Groovy caught on. Like flower power's groovy, man. For a lot of people who are on drugs, like a lot of words caught on, but so did diseases, social ones. And that was part of the Woodstock thing. And I don't think that was groovy. It was gnarly, though. And gnarly was another word in the early 90s, like tubular, that people tried to get to be synonymous with cool, which also failed, which is good because all I can think of is like an inner tube. And that's not cool. If people were walking around with inner tubes on them, I would not think that guy's cool or she's really cool. It's almost like a fanny pack. Ew. You know, fanny packs are coming back, and there's like a Gucci one. It's like $10,000. That's funky, and that's not fresh. So try hard and hardo. Be on the lookout for words that people, particularly teenagers, are using, and young adults. And I see this, there's this whole, like, if you go back to one of my episodes, you can just go through, and I'm self-referencing. Wow, that's bad. If you go back to one of my episodes previously, I talk about try not to be too jaded, and I'm not trying to repeat that episode. I'm trying to address the language that insidiously is degrading our ability to love things. And I want to be really clear about that. Why do I hate these words? I hate them because it's a subversive way to undermine somebody's love for something, somebody's passion for something. When you call somebody a hardo as an insult, like it's exactly like in the late 80s, early 90s, somebody being called a dork or a geek or a freak or a nerd because they're really into something. Like maybe they know a lot of the stats about their favorite team. Maybe they know a lot about how a radio is put together. Like my favorite dentist that I ever had, wow, that's a line that nobody really has in their come out of their mouth. My favorite dentist who moved to Hawaii with his wife to live this like ridiculous lifestyle because I mean, they were very smart, but he built radios, like transistor radios from scratch. It was one of the things, and like, so as he's like, I'm like, I'm going, he would sit there and tell me about these transistor radios and how he'd put them together, and he got his daughter involved, and it was a family thing, and he knew everything about like amperage and like how the resistance of these things changed, the distortion levels, and how you get your mid and high levels, and And I genuinely was fascinated with this to the point where like I had this crazy filling done and it took like an hour and 15 minutes. It went by like that because this guy was captivating with how interested he was in something that I knew little to nothing about, quite honestly. But he made me interested in it because I was just open to the idea that this person is in love with something, so there must be something great about it. What a hardo, right? Like what a try hard. This is the stuff that I'm talking about. It really is, it's just gross. Like when you throw that at somebody, you're doing two things. One, you're making fun of somebody for really loving something and being passionate about something. But number two, you're also kind of raising your hand and saying, I'm a loser. And I like to be mediocre at everything, and I don't really like to try hard at anything. And I mean, I hope that you would not want to say that about yourself, although there is an entire generation of people who kind of subscribe to that idea that they're kind of losers. I mean, and not losers like they're never going to go anywhere in life. And I'm not trying to like bash a whole population of people. I mean, maybe I am, but like, I think I'm being pretty specific in my critique. I think that there is an entire population of highly educated, highly trained people who are going to end up bored and never really feeling great about their lives because they're afraid, because of language, they're afraid of being passionate about anything. Isn't that sad? Like that's really sad. And sad in a couple of ways. Like it's kind of pathetic, but it's also like I get it. I see how this works. Like there is a social bullying, a social pressure to not love anything without being called out for being a try-hard or a hardo or like, can you imagine that? Like that this is the push, these are the boundaries to not love anything. I mean, if artists were always mediocre and never really let anybody know that they wanted to spend 10 hours a day painting, we would never have great artwork. I mean, not that modern art's great, but like we used to have great artwork. If David Grohl was kind of always like, yeah, I mean, I like guitar a lot, and I even though I love drums, like I still want to practice guitar, but I want to hide that, so I'm not going to do it too much. We would never have Foo Fighters. We would never have Foo Fighters. That's horrible. That's the opposite of perfect. That would just be like one of the worst things ever. If Flea never was like a try-hard about the bass, the Chili Peppers never would have existed. And I just saw a guy with a T-shirt from them earlier today, and I was just like, yeah, man, they used to be a great band. Great music, great movies. I saw an article review for an acting performance that basically the whole article was about how the guy acted too hard. Really? So you're saying the guy portrayed the character too hard that he was trying to portray as perfectly as he could. That's the language of the article. It was specifically making fun of the movie because the lead actor was trying too hard to act. Can you imagine if the critique at a restaurant was like, yes, well, this food was really good, but it really seems like the chef was kind of a hardo and really put their heart and soul into this meal. Freak. What? This is where we're at. I mean, this is starting to bleed into critique of media and culture. Guys, we got to stop this. Be aware. Do what you can to stop people. Like, honestly, call people out. I'm like, wow. Like, and I've said this before. My revolution, my thing that I would like to see happen is I would like to see us come together as a community and make a conscious effort to make fun of people who don't have a passion because they're losers. They're boring. The people who don't want to try anything. The people who don't want to just go out and bowl because like, well, that's like, I'm not good at that, so I don't want to seem like I'm bad at bowling. Like, wow, you're too cool to bowl? ? That's really dumb. So it's the same people. They don't want to try to play a game against you. Like, I don't want to play like foosball because like I don't want to look stupid. So yeah, you hardos can go with like, wow, you're literally a square. And I love the word square. And I know I've brought this up before, but I love the term square to make fun of somebody who's boring as much as I hate the word perfect being abused by people all the time. Calling somebody a square is just so accurate. Like, it's just, you're such a blockhead or you're such a square. You totally fit within the box. You're a square. And to be able to bring that back and make fun of people, to just shame them. I mean, like, because it's the opposite of what we're doing right now. We're shaming people for having a love and a passion. And honestly, like, and I have felt this on this podcast, that like people have basically tried to, run roughshod against me in the comment section, just talking about how like I'm just passionate about something, and it's not cool. Like I never ever pretended to be cool on here, just to be aware. And if you're watching this, I hope you're not cool either, because being cool has always been the case where you're boring and you don't try things because you don't want to look ridiculous. It's more important to you that your ego is stroked and that you look cool, you look good, your hair doesn't become a mess, your clothes don't get dirty, you don't fail at something, nobody sees you trip and fall. It's more important that people don't see you in a position where you tried and failed than it is for you to try something. That's always been the case. Yeah, exactly. Square and cool are timeless words. And square and cool, ironically, are the same. It is the current way of dismissing other people as if they're less important. That's exactly right. It's almost like you're important because you don't know as much, you don't try as much, you don't do as many activities, you're not that interesting. So the less interesting you are, the more important you are. This goes back to what I was talking about before when like, ooh, I'm an adult, so now I'm boring. So having responsibilities automatically makes me cool. No, it makes you boring. And if you can't figure out how to have fun and try new things, you're stupid. Or maybe not stupid, but you're ignorant. You're ignorant. It's not like that's not a thing that you need to be trying for. So anyway, those are the words that I think are really important for us to fight against. Please throw some stuff out in the comment section of your favorite words to make fun of and things that you hate to see. And talk to me later if you want in the comment section, or email me, Eric, or defeatedbydeliciousfruitpies@gmail.com. I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to read that, and I will bring it up in the next video. So that brings me to the second part of this episode, because again, I don't want to just have some kind of thumbnail that I got to change halfway through and get rid of the part where I talk about all of the things that are in there. So as promised, the second thing that I want to talk about this week is how being about current events actually makes shows suffer. They become irrelevant. And the ones that I'm going to focus on are The Simpsons and South Park. And I know that this could get into some sacrilegious territory because I love both of those shows. Or I guess I should say loved both of those shows. But they both fell into the same trap because the trap is very lucrative, but the trap is also, it's really damaging to the IP. So it's damaging to the brand and it's damaging to the reputation. Think about your favorite episodes of The Simpsons. If you don't have a favorite episode of The Simpsons, again, you're not part of the demographic that I'm targeting here because you're definitely not like 30 plus. But The Simpsons used to be a great show because it dealt with things that were timeless. Like it dealt with concepts like parenthood and school bullies and unemployment and dental plans. Dental plan, Lisa needs braces. Dental plan, Lisa needs braces. Football in the groin had a football in the groin. Like you have to like look at these episodes and it's amazing the stuff that comes out because they're timeless. You know, they're the things that we all kind of struggle with or deal with or laugh about all the time. But then The Simpsons started to follow suit on what South Park did. And what's interesting is that South Park initially had a whole episode about how South Park copied everything that The Simpsons did because The Simpsons did everything. And it was a very accurate episode. But every time that Butters was going to do something, basically he was called out with, Simpsons did it, Simpsons did it. And he's like, but it doesn't matter because The Simpsons did everything. And I think it was their 100th episode. But it didn't matter. Maybe that was the Back to the Pile episode. Anyway, that was a great episode. And it really made fun of the fact that like no show could take on the topics that The Simpsons did already in that format because The Simpsons already did it. So if you were going to have a Family Guy or you were going to have some kind of like other show that was a cartoon, it really could just have its own take on a topic that The Simpsons had covered. Well, this was pretty foreboding because then The Simpsons started to run out of things to do, and so they started to get into current events, which South Park had already started doing, and doing it well. Because obviously Trey and Matt are geniuses, and the show is hilarious. It would take on current events, and it would talk about them in a really funny way. The problem is, they just don't matter. Some of the episodes just don't age well anymore. And if you're born after a certain age, every year there's a new group of teenagers who never cared to be in the pop culture world, and they're seeing these older episodes of the show and they're like, I don't get it. You never want your comedy to require information that people are probably not going to have. But that's exactly the trap that South Park fell into. So we think a lot of the episodes are really funny. Like the Christopher Reeves episode where he's like eating babies, like literally to get those stem cells. That's a really funny episode, but if you don't remember that there was an article about him using stem cells to try to help himself walk again, and you don't remember that he got knocked off his horse and then like broke his back, and if you didn't watch the old Superman movies, a lot of the references in that episode, go back and watch how many of those references you would not understand if you didn't see those movies, see him break his back, or see the article, and then see the article about him using stem cells. That's a terrible episode for a current 16-year-old to watch. They're not going to get any of that. They're going to be like, okay, like I get it's gross and that's kind of funny, and there's like 4 or 5 things in the episode that are funny, but honestly, like they missed. It didn't age well. And a lot of these episodes for South Park just didn't age well. Versus in the beginning, they had episodes about Santa Claus in general and Jesus in general and like, your parents punishing you in general and the things that 3rd grade kids go through in general. And those are timeless episodes. You can go back and watch those old episodes and they're always going to be relevant. Like the euthanasia episode. I think it's like the first season. They're like, kill me, Billy. My name's not Billy, Grandpa. Come on, Billy, damn it. Like that whole episode's hilarious when he makes them sit and listen to this horrible music and he's like, turn it off, let me out. I was like, now you know what it's like to be old, Billy. And then he's like, I'll kill you, Grandpa. Like that whole episode is hilarious. And and Kenny dying, and there's things that were really funny in the episode. The Simpsons also fell into that trap. I mean, the Simpsons movie had a lot of timeless stuff in it, and that's what was great about that movie. It's actually I just watched it again recently. That is an amazing movie. And the South Park movie is amazing too, because it's kind of timeless. But if you go back and watch some shows that tackle current events, talk about current events, use current events as the template for the episode, you don't watch them again. They're boring. Like the episode is either like, like that didn't age well because it turned out that wasn't even a thing, or we've really moved past that and now we're like talking about completely different things. That's a scary thing to see. When you go back 10 years ago, watch comedians who talk about current events, like watch The Daily Show, like watch Jon Stewart from 10 years ago, and then watch what we're talking about now. A lot of the stuff that was parody is now reality, and that's scary. But it also means that the comedy doesn't age well, because then if you're watching that now and you have no idea how much better things used to be socially, you'd be watching that and you're like, wow, what do you mean that's a joke? That's literally what's going on now. I don't get it. So it just doesn't age well. So then you look at a show like, and again, I go back to The Office. It deals with topics. It doesn't deal with current events. It talks about them sometimes. Like all shows, they may have like, even the original Simpsons, they would have like Bill Clinton, or like Tiny Toons would show George Bush when they, and I think it was even Animaniacs. No, I think it was Tiny Toons that pulled George Bush's lips down and he like read his lips and it said no new taxes. And that's funny at the time. Kids now wouldn't get it, obviously, but nobody's watching Tiny Toons anyway. But then Animaniacs had, like, even in the theme song, like, Yakko packs away his slacks while Bill Clinton plays the sax, and it has him playing the saxophone, which is, I mean, it's just funny anyway. It's just funny to see that part of the beginning. But that, in general, those shows dealt with topics, and that was funnier, and it was better. So again, it's just topical, but think about your favorite shows, something to talk about with people you know, and discuss, like, remember this episode of this show and think back to those shows. And it's just interesting to me that episodes were a lot better when they weren't trying to deal with current events. It's, again, the reason why this show, we try not to deal with current events, because I really don't want to fall into that trap. Like, yes, I would get a lot more clicks if I talked about current events. I noticed that the episodes that I have the most clicks on, a lot of those are from just like, so Borderlands. I said the word Borderlands, and that came out that weekend. I was talking about multiplayer games in general, but Borderlands just came out, and I knew that, and like, yeah, I get that I'm doing the thing with the thumbnail to get the clicks. Like, I get it. I'm not above it. I don't care. That was just a fun experiment. But that episode will still be relevant because I'm talking about multiplayer games, and I was talking about like EverQuest and Diablo and stuff in there too, which are much older games. So trying to stay relevant, I think, ironically, involves not talking about current events. And you'll see this. This is my prediction. You can go into the Wayback Machine if you're watching this episode 10 years from now and listen to what I'm saying now. I'm talking about current channels that you may watch. You may enjoy some YouTube channels. But I'm telling you right now, the ones that are about current events, and the ones especially that take a hard stance in one direction or another, eventually will fall flat and lose membership and they'll lose views because it'll either get old, because it'll be like, wow, that's just always the same opinion or the same side of the same things that just keep happening every day, especially when you have like news cycles today where, not to be too current events, but like it's the same thing over and over again for 3 years. Like I'm literally seeing, especially as it comes to politics, it's literally the same things over and over again for 3 years. We're listening to the same people talk about the same position on the same people. We haven't gotten anything new to talk about. We have nothing new to talk about in politics in 3 years, apparently. It's all the same stuff over and over again, which really speaks to the lack of urgency with anything. My big pet peeve, obviously, is that your local politician actually doesn't have a clue how much it would cost to maintain the current infrastructure in their own community that they represent. Duh. And yet, we hear the same topics over and over again on a national and even a local stage. If you want to try a fun game, write to your local representative or, just call them up, call their office up, and ask them to just ballpark for you what they think it would cost to maintain the roads, the bridges, the phone lines, the water lines, the sewer lines, over the next 10 years, and how they would figure out fiscally how to manage that budget. Just that. Nothing else. See how long it takes for them to choke on what they're trying to figure out. It's a fun game. I know this because I've done it. So anyway, not to sidetrack on current events, but what I'm saying is that these people, these channels who are talking about current events all the time, they're either going to have to evolve and talk about other things and move out of being current to stay relevant, or they're going to fade away. They're not going to disappear. They're going to fade away because they're talking about things that become boring. The current event is the trap because it becomes boring to listen to the same stuff over and over again. It's a new name. It's a new day. It's, October of 2019. But October of 2015 sounded an awful lot like October of 2019, if you look at the news. So a lot of these political channels, a lot of these like current event channels, they're just going to kind of fall into these same things and same tropes. Meanwhile, you're going to see Dr. Ocelotopus have different things on him. It may be Mike Myers. It might be a Doctor Who hat. It might be a Ninja Turtles thing. It might be a mask. Who knows what you're going to end up seeing on that. But at least it'll be different. I mean, he might even get a friend. We're going to have even next episode. Oh, and this is a great segue into what we're going to do next week. Next week, we have a guest, a special guest. A special guest. And we're going to have a really cool topic that is relevant to the time that we're going to be doing it. So just so everybody here knows, next week we will be doing Saturday morning at probably like 10 or 11 o'clock, and I will solidify that as we go through the week on social media. So, by the way, follow us on Twitter, at DBDFP. Follow us on Facebook, Defeated by Delicious Fruit Pies. And we always post when we're doing episodes ahead of time, so you can kind of get into the know. And obviously subscribe to this channel. It's great when you do. If you like this video, please click like. It actually helps me a lot with like getting more organic views from people, which is nice. It's really good to get people to kind of get into the conversation. Also, if you're watching this as a video later on, please comment below. It helps with what's called interactions. And that's something that YouTube actually tracks. So with comments and with likes and shares, so all the shares, you click that button, it's like an arrow over. Just send it to people you think would think this topic might be interesting or relevant to them. That helps me a lot too. I never really get to plug the show. I don't really think about it. But please do all those things. It's fun. It'll help us to have a bigger community. The more people that are on here, the more interesting the channel will be. As much as I love my mom sending me comments in the section. And by the way, and for those of you who don't have a great relationship with your mom, my mom is a great person to have on chat and talk about these things because we're on the same wavelength, and it's something that I actually do enjoy having in here. So, you might notice her in the chat and you could say things, but don't insult her or else I'm going to block it because it's my mom, man. But anyway, if you are watching this and you want to get on next week, that special guest will be talking about something relevant to Saturday morning on Saturday morning. So check that out. It won't be current eventy. If you do want me to talk about current events, I will be considering doing a Twitch channel. It'll be Defeated by Delicious Fruit Pies or at DBDFP. I'll let you know what that is, but I'll be live streaming just playing a video game or something. And I also have a Subscribe Star. I have a Patreon too, but I'm never going to use it because Patreon sucks. I just don't like their policies and practices. They tend to kick people off of their platform for no good reason. But Subscribe Star doesn't. So I will let you know if I'm going to start doing more live streaming and additional content because this is weekly. And I'm not going to do daily on YouTube. I'm just not. I'm not like super interested in growing YouTube as a channel because I think YouTube is going to end up dying mostly because it keeps trying to kill itself. But there are other like BitChute and there's other platforms. And one of the things that I'll be using is Subscribestar. And it's behind a paywall, obviously, because I have to like pay for the stuff that I'm doing for that. And because it's going to take up my time, and my time is actually pretty expensive. So it does require me to have some kind of funds, so I will be asking for support when that gets to that point. And then I'll be doing more specific things, more interactive chat, and I will do more current event stuff, but I just don't want that to be the focus of the channel. I also have a backlog of some of my David Attenborough stuff, and I have some Ancient Aliens episodes to upload too as we go into the fall. Fall's a great time, so hope you're having a great time, and I will see you guys all next week unless there's any comments or questions. And as always, you can always email defeatedbydeliciousfruitpies@gmail.com if you want to send that later on. All right, I love you all. I hope, well, most of you. And I will see you all in the next episode. All right, peace.
Defeated by delicious